There is that old expression that a decision that upsets both parties equally is probably the right decision. Sometimes a decision that upsets both parties equally is just the wrong decision. In this particular case,
I think this was the wrong decision.
Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, back in my home office, outdoors, enjoying a beautiful Florida afternoon. And I have to tell you something, people. I've got the Epstein file right here.
I'm just kidding. I printed up the document that's widely available on the internet now.
So the big story of the day was the anticipated letdown of a wet blanket. As we say in French, un pétard mouillé, a wet firecracker of a release. The Epstein files, and some people on the interwebs are freaking the heck out. I would say cool it, just take it down a little bit, but I do understand the frustration. If you don't live on the internet like I do, here's the lowdown. From 5 times August, at 5 times August, he makes wonderfully beautiful music. If you don't follow him and listen to his music, do it right now. We're going to release the files, but you have to wait until Trump wins. We're going to release the files. Gonna have to wait until Bondi gets in too. We're gonna release the files. Okay, well, 24 hours after cash gets confirmed, we're gonna release the files. You gotta give him more than 24 hours. Geez, we're gonna release the files. You just wait. The files are on Pam's desk right now. We're gonna release the files. Hopefully tomorrow we'll release some info. We're gonna release the files. Just a sec. Gotta hand out these little binders to a handful of social media influencers first. We're gonna release the files. Okay, we're going to do this in phases. More impressive than that tweet is that I actually read that in one breath, but that's a fair synopsis of what's been going on. People were freaking out that the Epstein files were not released on day one. I was saying chill out. Day one doesn't always mean literally on day one. Sometimes 5 minutes doesn't mean 5 minutes. And when someone says 5 minutes, you can pretty much bet it's going to take more than 5 minutes. But the Trump administration has been promising the release of the Epstein files for a while, and rightly so, because if they fail to produce those Epstein files, some people are going to conclude that Trump and his friends might be in the Epstein files. Now, I happen to firmly believe that Trump is nowhere near in those Epstein files, because if he were in those files, he would have been leaked out a while back. Whether or not there's other close friends who might be embarrassed for being in the Epstein files, possibly, but Trump himself is definitely not in those files. So with that said, it was something of a campaign promise of the Trump administration to look into releasing the Epstein files. Trump got elected, and then it became basically an open promise of the Trump administration. Pam Bondi gets out there and says, yes, I've got the files on my desk. I'm just waiting for the okay to release them. I had and have no doubt they will be released.
I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
But the delay of the release has caused some people to start worrying, and the debacle of a botched release today has got a lot of people up in arms.
Hey guys, this is Savannah Hernandez in front of the White House with, yes, one of those Epstein file binders. Now, I want to clear something up immediately and state that nobody from the Trump admin gave us these binders and said, you guys are going to be the ones responsible for disseminating this information. They actually told us that there's going to be a press conference at any moment now, most likely this afternoon, in which all of the information in this binder is made available to the American public. Now, Pam this morning stated to us that some of the information in here is already public, and she doesn't really feel that any of this information is a smoking gun. The big story here is Pam writing a letter to Kash Patel asking him to investigate why the FBI has stopped the release of other portions of the Epstein files.
Now, yesterday, as at the time of shooting this vlog, I put out a tweet that was mildly critical but somewhat reassuring that I still have faith. Viva Frei, at the Viva Frei, it will be a very big problem if the administration does not release the Epstein files. I have no doubt they will, and that there is probably a strategic reason for which they are waiting. Also, quote, day one, end quote, doesn't always mean literally on the first day any more than, quote, 5 minutes, end quote, means 5 actual minutes. But the administration absolutely must release the documents. And if they do not, people on both the left and the right will be suspicious and angry, rightly so. A promise is a promise, and I have no doubt this promise will be kept. And that was in response to Ian Yeager at Ian Yeager29 tweeting out, breaking, Rep. Lauren Boebert calls on Attorney General Pam Bondi to release the Epstein files today. So as I'm live today, Viva Frei on Rumble, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. If you don't already follow us there, as I'm live today, during a stream, I start seeing tweets to the effect that the Epstein files have finally been released. There's a photograph which will now become an infamous photograph of a number of people holding up a famous binder of Epstein documents. And if you haven't seen that picture, this is the picture. But even before the failure of a launch of the Epstein documents drama broke out, people were already quite upset. What is this nonsense? This, what do they call it? A limited hangout? Disclosing this to certain influencers so that they can decide what's relevant and what's not. People were already up in arms, not the least of which was Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer at Laura Loomer. Interesting. I wonder who is handling, quote, influencer relations, end quote, at the White House. Very interesting how many who busted their ass during the primary and general election, working hard to help President Trump and his staff on a day-to-day basis, didn't get the memo. Quote, loyalty matters, end quote. And then you got your laughing, sarcastic emoji face there. That was in response to Josh Suckoff at Josh Suckoff. That's a very unfortunate name. A group of people, including at DC_Drano, exit the West Wing smiling and waving binders reading, quote, the Epstein files, phase 1, end quote. Now, that was not the only angry tweet from Laura Loomer, and I've got to say I don't actually blame her. Some of her critique is wholly warranted. This was a botched rollout. I just will not freak out any more than that. Laura Loomer had some other things to say which are worth mentioning. So how is it transparent to only give a select few of, quote, influencers, end quote, binders with the Epstein files at the White House? This is not transparency. Why should interns at the White House who are friends with right-wingers online decide who gets access? This is pretty embarrassing. Now, Laura raises some legitimate points, some legitimate critique. I wouldn't call these people influencers. First of all, I hate the word. I don't consider them influencers. I would regard them more as alternative media, and what this was basically was something of a pre-release with something of an embargo, because there was a reason why they had to wait before releasing the information. So I view it as nothing more than an embargo with a select few media, independent media, having been given early access to it. I don't take it personally. I don't take offense, and I don't think there's anything more corrupt to it than that, but I do certainly understand how some people do not like this rollout. The bigger problem is that there was nothing new in that so-called binder, and that in fact there seems to be something of an internal civil war or some sort of defiance between the FBI out of New York and its cooperation or lack thereof with the FBI out of Florida and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. And that is what brings us to this infamous letter, which I have exclusive, non-exclusive, it's already been published everywhere, access to. Let me read you this document. First of all, can you appreciate, I don't know why we print on such thick paper at home. It really feels good, but it sounds like lightning. Office of the Attorney General, Washington, D.C., 20530, February 27, 2025. Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request, and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president and our country. Sincerely, Pamela Bondi, Attorney General. All right, now this is actually very interesting because some will read this and read it as something of a self-serving, padding your own file. I issued an order, and now somehow I've got to find an excuse for why I didn't produce all of the documentation that I recently suggested was on my desk. What this is, however, and illustrating is that there's a bigger problem here. That if this document is true, and that Pam Bondi was assured by the New York FBI office that she had the entire file on her desk, and now she's discovered that there were thousands of pages that were not communicated to her, there is something of a, call it a civil war or an act of defiance, or the FBI trying to protect itself. There's something going on here in that there's clearly a lack of collaboration between the FBI out of New York and Pam Bondi as the newly appointed Attorney General. Now, some cynics might say Pam Bondi got caught in a lie when she said she had the documents sitting on her desk and now she's got to come up with an excuse. I don't buy that. I don't think that's the case. I think the case here is that when she said the other day, I've got the file on my desk, I'm just waiting for the okay to release it, I have no problem believing that the FBI out of New York refused or failed to communicate the entire Epstein file to Pam Bondi. Bondi upon her request. Why that might be the case, one can only imagine. But I don't have to necessarily believe that Pam Bondi lied the other day, because I don't. I do happen to believe that the FBI out of New York, for reasons that I can only surmise, failed or refused to communicate the entire file to her, and I do sort of subscribe to Glenn Beck's analysis of the entire situation, which I will read now. Glenn Beck, at Glenn Beck, who is subverting POTUS? The Epstein files are a total joke. I know Cash, Pam B, and the president. This is not the file. White House tells me that they believe the usual suspects, FBI/SDNY, the most corrupt district on earth, Southern District of New York, has the actual Epstein client list and are refusing to turn it over. This is an internal civil war if true. I will be doing a special Xcast in a few minutes. And Kyle Seraphin replies, at Kyle Seraphin, it is an internal civil war. The intel cadre and the status quo contingent of the FBI have been subverting the potential of the new director since before he was named, and they are winning. So that is the latest drama. Now, there is a website, and I'll put the link in the description, which is the FBI's website with a ton of links to the Epstein files. It's just that none of them are new. It's been up there since 2018 or 2020, or at least it's been updated in 2018 and 2020. It's got all of the file back to 2006. Jeffrey Epstein being wanted on child prostitution. My goodness, he was convicted on sex trafficking, and yet we still don't know who his clients were. I don't believe it for a second. I do believe that the FBI and the corrupt Southern District of New York are certainly withholding the documents, and I don't think it's to protect Donald Trump. I think it's to protect their own. We shall see. But that's the latest. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Make sure that you are liked, shared, subscribed. Turn on notifications so that you get notified when I put up a video. But most importantly, exercise, eat healthy, sunlight like this, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
Bill Clinton. Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems.